Good morning, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. Had a couple of technical difficulties there, but we got everything sorted out. We are here. We are ready to discuss financial foundations, navigating studio designers accounting features with Julia Nikishna. Julia, thank you as always for joining us and putting these on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anthony. You're too kind, as always.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us today. Like I said, taking the time to spend with us and learn hopefully something new and interesting. Julia, for those of you who don't know, has her own firm called New Age Financial Consulting. So she offers bookkeeping and accounting support, including CFO services for all size of business, mostly in design. She specializes in unique and complex accounting needs of interior design firms and showrooms, and she also offers a comprehensive procurement service for designers and showrooms as well. So with that being said, the last house cleaning item we're going to go over before I turn it over to Julia is if you have any questions whatsoever, there should be a little question mark box in your Zoom toolbar. We do have Q&A, and we sometimes either as we go along answer questions, wrap them up at the end if we can. So at any point during the webinar, if you have a question, type it in that box. We'll get to it. We'll get you the answers right here live. And with that being said, Julia, I'm turning it over to you. It is all yours. Go ahead and drive the ship.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, hold on. Let me make sure that we're sharing the right screen. It's always this fun game. Screen studio.
Yes, there we
Yeah.
go.
Oh, I was like,
It took a minute.
Thank you everyone for joining. So as Anthony has mentioned, in yours, wherever your Zoom toolbar is, so that may be on the side, at the bottom, at the top, you have the Q&A box. So go ahead and click on that box and feel free to ask questions as we're covering a specific topic. I do feel like it's always much easier to review a question while we're in a particular screen versus trying to go back to something in terms of content. So if you think of something, by all means, please type it in there and we'll go through as many questions as we can. So today we're discussing financial foundations, which is obviously an awesome topic. It's those of us who have been in studio for 2024, it's end of the year, so taxes are upon us. The S Corp deadline is 3/15, which I believe is next Friday, and then the personal returns are 4/15. So we're going to talk about some best practices in terms of the financial reporting. And a couple of reminders for those of us who are new, and even if you're not new, just some reminders for the studio accounting portion. So as hopefully we all know, studio is my test client, hold on, is 19th Street. So let's just go to 19th Street. So studio is accrual based only. So what does that mean? If you go to reports just very, very quickly, and you look at just your balance sheet, even to start off, and let's look at last year. So it's accrual based only, and that means we only recognize revenue and we only recognize cost of sales when we invoice an item. We'll go through the steps of invoicing an item, and we'll go to our general ledger to see actually what those entries are when that happens. And if you pull up your balance sheet, and remember in the test database, our balance sheet is super sloppy and has lots of questionable items on it, but just pretend. I am showing that we have client deposits of almost $3.5 million, and I'm showing we have vendor deposits of $329,000. So unless you are invoicing your items, your revenue for product such as upholstery, furniture, accessories will be blank on your income statement. And the way the income statement is structured in here, which actually I think is quite great and very comprehensive. I don't like to look at zeros. I always exclude them and I always complain about them. This section up here, this income sales, is tied to your items. This is your item screen. Anything in here should be directly coming from an item within a project. And the same with cost of sales. These cost of sales are directly tied to an item. But they don't show up on your income statement unless you invoice them. And really, what does invoicing mean? So if we go into our item screen, And 19th Street is my test client. So this is Mr. Tom Hanks. I work with him and on his project all the time. He's very easy. We're actually going to enter an item. He's very easy, and I have lots of money in client deposit, which makes approving proposals super fun and streamlined. But let's get an item in there from Studio Capture. So I'm going to enter maybe an outdoor something, an outdoor lookbook, an outdoor, whatever that is, an outdoor chair. Let's get it in there. Oh, these are pretty. Oh, and that's pretty too. Lounge. We're going to put in an item. So we could really follow the life cycle of the item and what does it do to the accounting side and how do you best manage that from a reporting perspective? Did it click? Here we go. So Studio Capture is open. We're going to enter these Huntington wicker slope arm swivel chairs. Anthony, I've been pushing design tools really, really hard lately, and I'm very proud of myself because I'm learning as I go. So Huntington is a refined, okay, so here's my top line item, right? Hopefully everybody is using Studio Capture, not only for items, but also for inspirations. If we're not familiar with inspirations, inspirations talks directly to your design tool module. Anthony was really leading a lot of those webinars last year when that module was first released. So if you do have any questions or you'd like to explore it further, those recordings are within the knowledge base and they're fantastic. So I'm going to enter this super quick, right? 19th Street. Vendor is Pottery Barn. Client is 19th Street. Again, ship to is 19th Street. No proposal, furniture, right? We're not adding this to an existing proposal. We're putting it in dining room. Okay. Price is right here, right there, and create an item. So I created an item. What does that do in Studio on the accounting side? It actually doesn't do anything. You could create as many items as you'd like within the database. Huntington, is that what this was? Huntington. Okay, great. A helpful hint, if you haven't seen the release in these pop-ups down here, is now on the client ID side under codes, you can link a images and attachments folder to each of your clients. So if this is a helpful hint for you, this is where you do it. So on the client ID, under codes, under images and attachments, default where you want images and attachments for any vendor backup documentation to go. So it would go right there. And so if we were on this item and we didn't have an image, you could now drag and drop it directly into your item screen. And if you drag and drop it and your image folder is selected on the client side, this image folder will live in the correct, this image will live in the correct image folder in your image library. So just keep that in mind. So if you're a longtime Studio user, that will be a bit of a task to go into each of your clients and update the images and attachments default folder. So this item in here, would you like to save changes? No, doesn't have any accounting ledgers. It doesn't do anything. You can have as many items in here as you'd like. They will populate on a project worksheet report, but in terms of actual accounting entries, they don't do anything. So it'll live in here until you start your item flow or your item workflow. So from here, we're adding this item to a proposal. Even at this point, there's still no ledger entries. Nothing happens. Financially, this is still just aesthetic. You could send this to the client. You could not send this to the client, but there's nothing on the income statement or your balance sheet. As soon as the client starts paying, your ledger entries occur. And so we could see them in the general ledger, which we'll go to. And let's just go to money in. Did we put on a proposal? Yes, we did. So 19th Street has a lot of money in client deposit, which makes my life very easy for approvals. So I go into money in, but I always want to make sure I'm following process. The client needs to pay first. I'm applying it here. And when I go back into my item screen, I can see that here's my payment now. Okay, so where does this live on the financial side of a studio designer? So you could actually see it a number of different ways. The easiest way, let's see. We should be able to copy this, though that may be harder. But let's go into the GL to see what the system did. Here. Oh, it only copied the dots. Oh, let's copy here. I want to show you the exact entries. Oh, here we go. Oh, I also didn't collect studio capture. So up until the point of the money hitting the proposal, there were no entries in here at all. But what I did was I took this top line up here, I took the detailed description of the item, and I copied it into my general ledger. I got to my general ledger by going to accounting and opening up, right-clicking general ledger. And then from here, all I'm trying to do is just understand the financial flow of money tied to the item. And this will be applicable to all of your items. And hopefully this will allow you to manage the financial reporting in a better and more proactive way. So what are client deposits and what do they mean? If we go back to do we have our balance sheet open? We do. So if we go back to our balance sheet, you have this total number on here. It's called client deposit and it says $3.4 million. Well, what does that mean? That means that clients have paid you $3.4 million. Those $3.4 million live on items and in funds available, which I'll show you. And they are not yet invoiced. That's what that means. Technically, and this obviously depends on your contract, but technically, like the by the book accounting answer is the reason it's listed here under liability is because if the client comes back to you and says, I want to cancel my project, or you close the doors tomorrow because of something, 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 these dollars are technically owed back to the client. That's why they live here under liability. They are not really yours. You're holding on to them, and you may be holding on to them for a point of time. But the way the accounting entries live is that they're really owed back to the client. And if you go to reports and you go to legacy, I personally, I'm an old studio user, about 20 years or so. So I live in my legacy reports. I don't typically go to financial forms. The reports are getting a refresh. So for those of us who are newer in studio, I think the newer users will be happier. For those of us like myself who like the old reports the way they are, I'm sure that I will be slightly less happy. But under legacy is a collection of the old studio reports. And in this section, there's this really fantastic report called the 50/40 client deposit. If you click on this report, filter out your zeros just to be efficient and PDF it. And so now what? So now you see your totals. I'm going to warn you, our totals don't match, and that is not okay, but it just means that we haven't done a good job on the accounting side. But your totals should match. So if I pull a detail of this account here, the same number should appear, and it doesn't. And that is because, right, we haven't done a proper year-end close. I'm sure we've never done a proper month-end close. We're in a fake database. So keep that in mind. But these should definitely match each other. And so if you're looking at your balance sheet and you're saying, oh my gosh, I have $3.5 million in client deposit, I have no idea what that means or how it impacts everything. And then if you pull your subledger, so this report here is called a subledger, the system tells you these 5 columns at the top. Let's go to 19th Street. So 19th Street, it's breaking it down for us to say, okay, they have paid us $1.2 million. Out of the 1.2 million, 86,000 of it lives on items that are on proposals. Remember, an item doesn't need to be on a proposal to have money applied to it, but really best practices are that you're not in the habit of applying money to items that are not on proposals. You should always only be applying money to items on proposals. So that's why this is called a proposal deposit. Then it breaks down to say, okay, well, this is the amount of dollars that you've already invoiced. So if you've already invoiced it, that means you've picked up the revenue and cost of goods. And then this is what's left over in their funds available, meaning that's true dollars that they've paid you that is unapplied. and that you could decide to give back to them. You could apply it to a time billing invoice, or you could apply it to future product. But what you do with it, I mean, maybe contractually you're obligated for, A, B, C, or D, but what you do with it really at this point is your discretion. And so then at the bottom, your proposal deposits are $1 million, and your true funds available, buckets of dollars for clients that are not assigned, are 2.5. And so then client deposit on your balance sheet is this number plus this number. And this is your flexible point. This is your proactive approach to managing revenue and cost of goods, managing your tax consequences a bit. But really make sure that these numbers here in the columns are correct, and the numbers associated with the clients are correct. So what do I mean by that? So Claire has $15,000 of dollars tied to items not invoiced. But I know this project was done 3 years ago. So that means I actually didn't finish the item life cycle. I didn't invoice these items, and I needed to. So you need to then go into your item screen and invoice. But let's actually just take a step back for 1 second. So now we understand, okay, we created a client deposit for Mr. Tom Hanks for this item. And now let's order it. So we're going to put the item on an order, and we're going to pay for it immediately. We're going to go and put it on our American Express. Makes it super easy. Is it a full amount? Yes, we don't have any freight. That's okay. We're assuming it's correct. I go back into my general ledger, and if I refresh, while I'm still looking at I want to only see activity tied to this item. As soon as I pay for the order, I could see that I triggered something called a vendor deposit. Well, what is a vendor deposit? Well, a vendor deposit in a way is the reverse of a client deposit. It lives here on your balance sheet. Here. And it's the dollars tied to product on the purchasing side that hasn't yet been invoiced. So vendor deposits and client deposits convert to income sales and income and cost of sales. And so one of the main reasons Studio is accrual is for us to understand as a firm, how much are we actually profiting from the sale of product. So when you invoice this particular, and again, this is one little example, right? When we invoice this chair, we're going to show that we made $3,800 of revenue and $2,800 of cost. So we're going to see that we made $1,000. We have a question. So will we ever be able to delete a payment once we apply it? I find that it is very confusing when we have to void the whole PO. So no, and really, I mean, the system is operating the way it's supposed to be. So that's a great question. You can't void this PO. It tells you can't void the PO. There's a payment applied to it. But the reason you can't void the PO when there's a payment applied to it is because there's these general ledger entries. So no, you have to follow the item flow, the item workflow, and the accounting entries. So Sage, as an example, is a relatively robust. Sage and Peachtree is a relatively robust accounting software. Deltek is the same for for the architecture field. There are safeguards in place to ensure that the accounting entries are aligned. So we triggered vendor deposits. If you would like to void a purchase order, you need to remove the vendor deposit first. So you would need to go in. So let's do that. And then we'll see we'll see all of the line by line by line by line. If you go into your item and you go to view payments, you'll be able to see what payment is tied to this vendor. So this is my payment, right? So it's on the American Express and it hit today. I copied and pasted it. And I'm going to go into my general ledger. I'm going to search by that check number. And I want to remove it because I can't void my PO. You know what? I'm going to add another item. I forgot. You don't need to void a PO for that, but let's pretend. So I'm going to void this entry. I'm going to void. And so now when I void the entry and I go back into my purchase order, the system will say, great, no problem. So it is operating correctly and effectively. It's warning you. You have this bucket of dollars in your vendor deposit. You cannot void the PO. You need to handle the vendor deposit first. And so now if we go back into our here, I want to show you what it looks like on the item level. I also didn't do a good job. I'm not supposed to leave. So this says Studio Capture A, but this is really item 13A. But if you are using Studio Capture, make sure you're updating your item number. Okay. So now I see, oh, okay, this item had a vendor deposit triggered here, and then we voided it here. And so now, what should we do? Should we add another item? I mean, we can. Oh, you know what? Let's add freight. Let's make sure let's add freight. Can you expand on that question? What happens if they return an item? How do I take the money out from the client side? Is that just clarify that for me. Let's assume, I think Restoration Hardware typically does $199 flat freight, but let's pretend that Pottery Barn does too. And we're not marking it up, which we should be, so we're going to mark it up 35%. So now we updated some of the costs, and we actually are showing that the client owes us an additional $292. Yeah, so if the client returns the item and I already applied the payment, so it's the same as the vendor side, but on the client side, you need to remove funds from the item. So if you go into accounting and you go to money in, let's just open up this proposal. So we're back in 19th Street, 106.15. We are now showing a balance of 292.16. But you know what? They changed their minds. They don't want to move forward with it right now. So I'm going into my money in screen. I'm changing my payment method to the top option, apply payment to item from funds available. Even though this option here says apply payment to items, it actually works both in and out, positive and negative. If you select apply payment to items from funds available, well, actually, let's do it this way. You could apply additional funds from this bucket here. So watch this number as we apply it. Right, so it went down, and you could also reverse it. You could say to the system, well, they changed their minds. I want to move the funds back into their funds available. So I do all of that through money in. There's a great report for you to be able to understand how many times or the number of times you moved money in and out of items or in and out of funds available. So watch that 824, 807. So that went back up to 829. And if you say to yourself or somebody else at the office is unsure, right, what happened or where are the dollars? How did we move them? Where did they go? If you go to reports and you just go to all reports, your payment application report is amazing. So I like the payment application by date. I would say typically the designers like it by item, and anyone on the accounting side likes it better by date. So click on the by date and just filter by 19th Street because I only want to see the activity associated with 19th Street. This will show me anytime I did anything with these client dollars. So they paid us $6,800. This went into funds available. This came out of funds available. Let's go to today. Today I see that we put 42, 25, 26 on this item, on this wicker slope arm swivel. Then we put 292 on the item. And then we, for whatever reason, took it all off. And we put 45.17 back into funds available. And so if you go into your general ledger, just to keep track of all of the ins and outs associated with the item, look at all the accounting entries here. So, right, it showed us the void on the vendor deposit. It showed us the out, and the in on the client deposit side. And so now if you go back into your item screen and refresh, we do actually have to put the money back. These are now zeros, right? But if you go into edit and you go into view payments, all of your activity is here as well. So not only is it on that report for payment application on the client side, if you go into view payments, you'll always be able to see any of the ins and outs on both client and vendor. But let's actually redo what we did because we want to continue to the invoicing process. We could add more items, but I don't even know if we need to. So then they emailed me and said, I'm so sorry. I actually really do love it. I asked my wife and she said it was great. Please go ahead. Please order. Fine. So I go back into my money in screen. I go back to apply payment up here, right? I'm taking it out of funds available yet again. And actually, if you go into this report payment application by date, the detail is going to live here. It's going to show you. Oh my goodness. In, out, out, out. Right, so this reversed itself, and then this, we finally applied it again out of funds available. So this report, it is client facing. We get that question a lot. Can this be a client facing report? It absolutely can. Does it do its job? It does. I think it could get very confusing. So if you are planning to send this out to a client, just make sure that you're really explaining it for them to understand what they're looking at. Okay, so so they paid and now process, right? We're back to doing our adding this item to an order. So what's the item workflow? The item goes in, the item goes on a proposal, the item is paid, then we issue an order. So we're going to go in and issue a new order, and then we're going to go in and pay it. Still, well, you know what? We're going to use I don't know, move a chase. We're going to use the ink card. Why not? And so the price changed too. So we're going to issue a payment to this vendor for $3,077, post vendor payment. Go back into your item screen. So this is here and this is here. Your amount due is 0. From a reporting standpoint, let's go back into our GL. Like from the high level financial overview, right? If you were just looking at this particular item, your 45.17.42, right? This dollar value, well, it's really 38.85.30 plus other costs. This is living in client deposit. This is living in client deposit. So 19th Street. Well, and this number changed, but it's living in this number under proposal deposits under this client. Okay, fine. It also indicates to us that this is work in progress. It's not yet completed, hasn't been finalized, and is not on our income statement. Maybe I could actually change my date. Let's see if I could change my date to 4/1. I don't know if it'll let me change it to a date in the future. I actually never do that. So if I change it to 4/1, I wonder if it'll let me. 25, whoops. Oh, okay, it did. The reason I want to change it to 4/1 is because I want to be able to pull an income statement so we could see exactly what happened with this just only with this item. So if you go to projects, and you go back to items, and now you're on this particular chair. If you're not a firm that uses colors, colors are amazing. They're a long-time tool. They're a great addition to your project management. So colors are here under select status, and you could name your colors. So go to settings, and colors are usually called priorities, though I feel like this menu item, this whole bar here just got a refresh.
It did.
Categories, it did.
Yeah, well, it's coming up at least. But yeah. And I will also tell you that just to brag, we used to have 10 colors and now we have 20.
Well, but Anthony, but wait, we used to have 3, then we had 8, and now we have 20. So like I tell everyone, I'm like, you used to have 3, be happy.
Well, if that's not progress, then I don't know what is.
Oh, so they moved them up here, and look, they're no longer called priorities, they're called color status. Oh, that must have just changed, Anthony, which is
I
good.
think, yeah, we have a webinar tomorrow about it, settings version 2. So yeah.
Oh, I should join.
Come on down.
Um, okay, so colors are here. So it's harder to see when it's here. Let's just mark it like that. It's harder to see when it's white, but this is your color status. And your color status settings live. So I went to settings and I went to, let me try to recreate my steps under items and products, color status. I right clicked and I opened them in a new tab. I always right click and always open everything in the new tab. It's my personal preference. So Anthony has a really great color. It is burgundy. And you could name your colors here. So
I've
this one is,
always wanted my own color, by the way, so I don't know who did that, but thank you.
oh, you didn't do that?
No, I did not.
Okay, there was one in here with my name on it and I took it away. I'm like, we don't need my name on any of it. But so think of colors as a management tool. How do you want to utilize colors? There's probably a webinar, I'm assuming, in terms of project management tips and tricks, or even like software tips and tricks. But colors are a really great addition to your work, to your office workflow, to your processes. So I love a color. The reason I'm discussing it specifically for this is I love a color for installed and invoiced or installed slash invoiced. But it's an indicator for everyone on the team, whether it's you, whether it's all the design staff, whether it's you, all the designers and accounting, but it's an indicator for everyone to look at this item. Let's see if we have one, and say that this item has been installed. And really what that means is that we're ready to close the accounting cycle, right? Everything on the accounting side is done. And so I made it this actually very lovely dark teal. And I'm telling everyone that the goods are no longer in my possession, right? Transfer of ownership has occurred. The chair is now installed at the client's home. And so what do we want to happen next? From this point in time, so remember, I changed my system date to 4/1 because I'd like to look at only this item on my income statement. So because we're accrual based, because everything here is living in here and here is living in client deposit, and this is living in vendor deposit. When I invoice, I relieve both of those buckets, vendor and client deposit. So select item, create invoice. I also recognize sales tax. If you are behind in invoicing, whether intentionally or unintentionally, you are also most likely behind in sales tax. So if you're not clear, did I close it? Maybe I closed it. If you're not clear how much money is living in sales tax and client deposit, we could certainly go through a report to identify, oh my goodness, not only do I have $3.5 million of client deposit, but how much of that is actually owed to the state? Because from a cash standpoint, that means those dollars need to be living in your cash buckets up here. And you need to know, right, that that's money owed out and not yours. So we've invoiced for this beautiful chair. Anthony, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Did you see this up here? It's interesting. Look, this is saying Studio Capture A, but this is saying 13A, and this should really say 13A.
Wait, one more time? Oh, right up there. Okay, so
Yeah.
that shows Studio Cat. Yeah, so it looks like this item was originally brought in from Studio Capture, and the item number and component were updated.
Yes, but the item number and component should then update up here.
Right. Good catch. I will
So,
let our team know.
yeah, I'll actually, I'll send this to Aaron, who's my all-time favorite
Oh,
problem
good.
solver.
Good deal.
I noticed that when I was copying this entire description into my GL.
Interesting. I would have never caught that. Good eye.
Okay, so we invoiced it. So that also means we closed the loop on our accounting life cycle. This item is technically done. It is complete. It went from A to Z. We did all of the steps and we did them correctly and we did them in order. But let's look to see what happened in our general ledger. So if I go into the GL and I filter, or excuse me, I refresh, my date is different. So it's not showing me that I invoiced it because I set my date to a date in the future, which by the way, you should never do. But let's take this. Oh, here we go. So I took it out and it invoiced it in the future. We should probably tell someone we should not be able to do that, but that's okay. This is a great example. So look at all of these entries that occurred when I invoiced, and it's doing everything correctly. It's recognizing everything from an accrual standpoint, and it's recognizing the income here and the cost at the same time, which is one of the things that, for example, like an Intuit, a QuickBooks, will never be able to do for you because of timing, right? We may collect money from a client in March, and we may pay the vendor in December because of lead times, because of something damages, or it's no longer available. We're waiting for it to come in stock. But that doesn't mean I don't want to look at my income statement and understand how much money I made from this chair and how much money it cost me for this chair. So now let's go back into our reports and go back into income statement. And let's only pull it for April. And let's get rid of our zeros. We should always get rid of our zeros. So look, here it is. It's just our one item. So here's the chair. So the chair cost me $3,800. There was freight associated with the chair of $268. If I go down, my cost of the chair was $2,800. So I marked it up $1,000. I did a relatively good job. And my true freight was $199, and I marked up freight as well at $268. So one of the benefits, and it can be, I would say, difficult to manage and understand, but this is, somebody asked the question about, well, vendor deposits we can't void, but this is why. Because we're looking to recognize revenue and cost of sales at the same time, very painfully, but item by item by item. So on a granular level, we could always pull sales furniture to say, okay, well, what was in sales furniture? So if I go into my general ledger, let me clear my date because I don't want it to be in the future. And you could do this in here, whoops, or you could do it in a report. I would actually just look at it by, right, by 20, oops, wrong year. We get rid of this one. If I then wanted to go and say, let's pretend this number was $300,000 or $38,000, and I wasn't just looking at it as one piece. I could go into my general ledger here and say, okay, well, show me everything I sold under furniture. And so here would be all of your furniture pieces. And then I could do the same thing with cost of sales furniture to say, okay, well, show me anything and everything that's associated with cost of sales furniture. And this is how you would understand, how am I doing from a client perspective in terms of revenue, cost of sales, and markup. Actually, another really great report. Let me make sure I can find it. No, on a client level, and it's not the client profitability report. It is, what is it? Was that just in here? This one? No, hold on. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy if I can't find it. Client profit? Let me see, maybe it's this one, and I really like it. It populates as an income statement. Let's see if I do this here. 2024. Ah, perfect. Okay. So this report, so I went, now let me recreate what I did. So it's called client profit. Where did it go? And where was it? Hold on, let's go back. Let's redo our steps. So reports, we went to legacy, which is where I like to go, but I think I was in the wrong section. I went to income statement. Oh, it's here. Sorry, client profit. So this report looks like an income statement, but I filtered it by client, right? So I filtered it by 19th Street, and it's showing me literally every item that's been invoiced, the revenue associated with the product side, the revenue associated with time billing, and then the cost of the revenue associated with the product side. Also, if I have office expenses tagged to the client in money out, they'll populate in here as well, which is fantastic. But now from a client perspective, I'm able to go in and say, okay, how much money did I generate in each of my sales categories for this particular client? And then you want to understand, like, did you do a good job, right? Here's your cost of sales furniture. Here's your sales furniture. You actually didn't do a great job. You didn't mark up that much. So what happened? So this is a different view than the project worksheet profit, which we'll look at as well. But this view as a starting point is also fantastic to just understand, because the client profit, actually, let's pull that up. The client profit, that project worksheet, is understanding your markup, where to me here, I'm trying to understand my revenue and my cost of sales totals instead of my markup. But also, if you're not good, so like, where's our client deposit? If you're not up to date, I don't know where it went, but if you're not up to date with this bucket of dollars, literally this bucket of dollars, and the 3.5 million is outdated by a year or 2 years or 3 years. This report, especially that client profit by client here, it will not be correct because it's only showing you items that have been invoiced. Actually, before we go to the project worksheet profit, let's have an example, or let's look at an example, still the same client and still that same item. And you're going to say, or I'm going to say to myself, you know what? I completely forgot there's an additional freight charge. Like, let's pretend the 199 was inaccurate. And actually, let's go back and change our date again. And it was inaccurate, and the vendor actually came back and I had to pay more freight. I also decided to not pass along that freight to the client. We could argue that's incorrect or that's not correct, but let's just pretend that's what we decided to do. So on the item level, so remember, it's invoiced. It's telling me it's installed. Pottery Barn sent me an email and said, please, I'm so sorry. Please send me this additional $500. Okay, fine. So if I go into this item, I am still, if you notice, I can't click into the selling side. I can't change it, but I absolutely can change the cost of the purchase side. I think you have to be very careful when knowing you could always change the purchase side and that you can't change the selling side. You can't change the selling side because the selling side here is tied to sales tax. And so once it's invoiced, that revenue and that sales tax has been recognized. And I don't know if I necessarily have a perfect answer as to, well, why can you change the purchase cost? Because actually, if you change the purchase cost after it's been invoiced, there's a general ledger impact, which I think many people don't recognize. And it's not necessarily good or bad. It just is, right? It's just, it has an impact on your general ledger, and you may not know, but you have to be really careful if this becomes a habit of yours. So I'm adding an additional $500 of freight to this item. I'm not passing it along to the client. No problem. This is showing here. You know what? I'm also going to pay it. I'm going to pay it. So my date, I think, is going to be wrong, right? Because I made this change on 4/1. So again, let's pretend we're going to issue them a wire. They really wanted it. They were so upset they didn't get the $500. If I go into my item now, into my general ledger on the item, which I want to do here. General ledger, item. Oops, sales furniture, let's get that out. Not liking something in my filters. I don't know why. Sometimes it's just sticky. Also just look here, but those filters should be working because we changed the date. So, oh, actually, so this is great because we could pull the income statement from the one that we had previously as well. So if you notice, not only did I pay accounts payable with the $500, but this entry here, just by going into the purchase side and adding an additional $500, it increased my freight expense. So this was my income statement before. It only showed freight at $199. But this is my income statement now because I made changes. And again, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's necessarily wrong. It just can become hard to manage. So do you see how now this says $699? So I'm a really big advocate, and this is a personal preference, and this is just from being in the database for many, many years. I like to only invoice when I know these are $0, right? When there's nothing owed to the vendor and nothing owed from the client. And I know that the costs are final and that the product has shipped. So in a way, we had a bad example, right? In theory, Pottery Barn would have never shipped if we owed them an additional cost. Maybe that, especially, I mean, Pottery Barn, obviously, but maybe that would happen with a local vendor. But 9 times out of 10, that wouldn't be the case, right? Somebody would be coming to you before the product was installed to say, oh, shoot, there was a discrepancy in cost. So if you go into, or if you come up with a process of how do you use the installed button here or the invoice, like what's your process for invoicing? My personal process is to ensure that all of the costs are correct, purchase and selling, and all of the payments are correct, purchase and selling, before I hit invoice. Because I don't want, on a monthly basis, I don't want to be confused and to not understand my revenue and cost of sales as it applies to items in real time. So because I was able to change the freight, even though the revenue could have been picked up in a previous month, the cost of sales is then picked up in a different month. And I don't want that, right? I don't want that at all. I really want to be clear to understand, here's my furniture, here's my freight, here's my furniture, right? And here's my freight. And so is it like fail proof? No, I don't think so. I mean, you may have a couple instances of somebody will come back to you to say, oh, freight changed, you owe me this additional balance. Obviously, then you'd be collecting it from the client. But really, goods aren't getting shipped without the final invoices paid from vendors. So if we're in the habit of closing out this side in full, and then having the client pay this side in full before we invoice, we're not going to have these types of discrepancies on our income statement. So you would be able to pull your income statement and truly understand, okay, why do I have these dollars in freight? Why do I have these colors in cost of freight? What are those items and what's my profit? And we were talking about the report, the profit report by client. That's actually another, I mean, that's a great report. If that's not in your cycle of review, it should be. Doesn't need to be every day, doesn't even need to be every week, but as you're working in projects and as you're closing out projects, this is a great report to pull. And I would actually add some filters into it. I would take out time billing. I would only look at product. I would narrow it down, sometimes even by vendor, to say, okay, like what's my average markup by vendor? But at the very bottom of this report, it's going to tell me what my average markup is. It tells me if I have any dollars tied to that client in terms of administrative expenses. And then what's my gross profit margin, right? Which is different than my markup. So our information is super skewed in here. We're marking up 157%, which is obviously amazing if that's true. And then our GPM is 61. So if you're not familiar, definitely look at this report. Something I would warn you is that this report is based upon your item screen. So if your item screen is inaccurate, this report will be inaccurate. And if you have items that maybe the client isn't moving forward with, or maybe the client has rejected because they're not moving forward with them, back to the same example, or maybe you have 3 dining selections entered on the item screen, this report will pull everything in unless you filter it accordingly. So like I usually filter out the room is not time billing, right? My time billing shouldn't impact my product margin. I want my project margin to be separate and apart. So now, oh my gosh, my markup is still like, oh, I have a management fee. My markup is amazing. I'm marking up 93%. As we
Ball,
can,
Julia, you're balling.
I mean, and not only that, but I have $800,000 from Tom Hanks in client deposit because he just wants me to spend all his money.
That adds up. That makes
That, it's this is like a terrible example. But this would be, if this was your project report, you would be looking at this to say, huh, what happened? Like, right, what's entered incorrectly? I could see that this particular item I would pull out of my profit report. I don't want to look at it. Not when it comes to product profit. This is my total selling. This is my total purchase. And this is anything in other. So other can be, you could now edit other costs, but you didn't used to be able to. And so other, especially back in desktop days, was always freight related. So some of our newer firms that come to us specifically don't necessarily mark up freight, or they don't mark up receiving. So this is just a great double check to say, okay, what's your process at the office? What does your contract say? And then we work with them to ensure that the other profit is a lot bigger than $4,000. So hopefully what we covered today really was the basics to a degree, but like the baseline of the financial structure of how the items work with the accounting side of Studio. All of it goes back to accrual. So many great questions in terms of, right, vendor deposits and client deposits, and why can't you do certain things? And there are reasons for that, for sure. If you ever have questions, support is obviously a really great resource. And though it may be confusing, this general ledger screen can potentially begin to give you insight as to what's happening on the item level every single time you perform an accounting task. An accounting task is anything having to do with money in, money out, purchase orders, and invoices. So just in my opinion, just some best practices to keep in mind. I know we're a few minutes early. Let me know if you have additional questions. Or if we want to wrap up.
Yeah, if we want to wrap up early, I'm sure everybody
Yes.
loves the extra time back to do that. I don't see any questions either. Well, with that being said, then we can go ahead and wrap this up. Julia, if I may,
Oh
share
yeah,
my
hold on. How do I?
screen.
Yep, stop sharing. I know.
Why is mine not working now? There we go. Okay, so should y'all need some extra assistance, guidance, advice, you can shoot Julia an email. Her contact information is up here, julia@newagefinancialconsulting.com. Questions? I'm sure she's busy. It's tax season, folks. So, um, definitely be kind if you have questions. Julia is super helpful to our whole community at Studio Designer as she offers up her advice and knowledge and expertise, as well as doing these webinars with us. She works with a ton of y'all that maybe are here today, maybe not, but she's honestly such a valuable resource and asset to Studio Designer. So, Julia, again, thank you so much for doing these.
Oh
Really
my
appreciate
goodness. Thank you.
should you need any support from the studio side, we are here for you. We are experiencing a rather higher volume of case inquiries than we normally will. Um, Day to day.
Tax time.
What's that?
It's tax time.
It is absolutely tax time. So we have all of your cases, I promise, and we are getting to them as soon as possible. I am actually training new support agents as we speak. So we're beefing up the team, beefing up the resources to make sure that we're there to support you. But should you need that support, reach out to us. You can click the little chat bubble at the bottom right corner of your screen. Provide as much detail as you can, because should you still need a live agent, we can get you to one if one's available. If not, it automatically will create a case that we can follow up on. And if we have details up front, then we can actually really get to a solution a lot faster for y'all. So please utilize that feature, or you can always email help@studiodesigner.com, and that actually will create a case for us as well. With all that said, thanks for joining us today. I hope you all have a great day, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Anthony. Talk to you soon, my dear.
Later.
Bye.